Hey guys, it's Carla. Today I'm going to start off with my canvas already painted and my outline drawn on. And if you want this outline, you can look in the description below go to my Facebook page, and I post all of my free traceables there and the reference photos. So the church itself I'm going to do with a palette knife. The rest of it will be done with brushes, but the palette knife gives me that kind of old wood look, so it gives you a whole different texture. You could paint this with a brush, that would be perfectly fine, but if you want this texture, then you can use a palette knife. Or you can even use, like if you take an old credit card or something, you can cut it to the size you want and use that as a palette knife, so that you can make different sizes. And because as you can see, this painting is kind of small, and so the church is small, and this is the smallest palette knife I have, and it's a little bit big, which that's why I'm painting the church first, because when you're using a palette knife, it's not always exact, and so you're going to get out of line and everything. So that way when I come back and paint my background, I can clean up all that. So you'll see after a while that that's not going to be an issue. But so I'm just putting a coat of paint over the whole thing with the palette knife, and then I'll come back with the brush and do all the other stuff, the windows and door and all the little details, without covering up without losing my texture here. So I've got the light coming from the left-hand side, so I want that side to be brighter. So on the building itself, that I brightened up that side, and then on the steeple, same thing. On that left side, I'm coming back with just plain white and brightening it up. And I can come back later with a brush and even make it brighter, because the brighter it looks, the sunnier it looks outside. So it just depends on what kind of effect you're wanting. But you can see how this palette knife gives you that texture that you can't get with a brush. So now I'm going to start on the background, and this is where I can clean up any places that the palette knife got out of line. And I'm just roughly brushing in the sky because I want the color of my canvas to show through in places. So, but again, if you don't want that look, then you could make a more solid sky. This is just acrylic paint I'm using. It's cheap paint and cheap brushes. That's typically what I use. And it's a very limited palette today. I've got white, phthalo blue, raw umber, and yellow. So right there where the sky meets the ground, I'm just kind of making it soft so that I don't have like a sharp, hard line to cover. And now I'm going to mix up a color for my grass. I want to start with a dark color and then put in lighter highlights. You'll notice I've got my canvas taped down. I do that for two reasons. One is so that it doesn't slide around, I don't have to hold it. And the other is when you get finished, you can pull the tape off carefully and you'll have kind of a frame around it. So it's just kind of a nice effect. Now on the grass, I'll be putting several layers and lots of texture. So it's just something you can play around with and get a look you want. All right, so now with a small round brush, I'm putting in the tree trunk because there's going to be a tree right beside the church. And then with a fan brush, I'm going to put in the first layer of the foliage, which I want to be really dark. So I'm just using the edge of the fan brush, like the tip of the fan brush, to tap this in. You've got to put the dark in first and then highlight it so that you have all the depth and dimension that you need. So just turn your brush at different angles so that you don't create like a pattern. This fan brush can really give you all different kinds of effects. So as long as you turn it the right way and use it the right way. So now I'm coming back with a highlight color, the first highlight color. There's going to be several because, again, I want it to look really sunny outside. So the brighter my highlights are, the more I'm going to get that effect. So I'm keeping most of my highlights on the left side of the tree, the top and the left. You want to leave darkness underneath and toward the right. So now I've added a little bit of white and I'm putting even brighter highlights in with the very tip of one side of the fan brush. I'm not using the length of the brush because then you'll get like a crescent shape, and that's not what I'm looking for. All right, so now I'm putting in little, I know you can't see it, but I'm putting in little slithers of window here, 3 windows along the side. And I want my windows to go with the angle of the church. So the window up front will be longer, and then they get shorter as they go back in the distance. And I'm just using a flat synthetic brush for this. If you want a really dark color and you're not using black, the raw umber and the phthalo blue make a really pretty black shade. So that's why I don't have black on my palette, because I like to make it with those two colors. And I kind of changed things up from my outline. It had different windows and everything, but I just kind of made up some as I went. So you can do that, or you can go by by what's on the traceable. So now I'm just putting a little shadow underneath the eaves. This defines them and makes them look shaded. So the roof of this steeple has little sections, I guess you would call it. And then of course the cross. So now with a small synthetic brush, I'm kind of cleaning up the edges and brightening things up a little bit. And I'm just using a small round brush for this. And keep in mind that you can, like I said before, you can do the church with a brush. You don't have to use a palette knife, or you can actually use the palette knife for the whole thing. It gives you a whole different look, but you can do that. Some people like to do an entire painting with just a palette knife. So I just, on this one, I wanted to use both and get both effects depending on what area I'm working in. So with this small synthetic brush, I'm just really defining and cleaning up all the edges. And this again will give it a brighter look, like a sunnier look. But just make this your own. You know, you don't have to completely follow what I'm doing. You know, you can make your own windows. You can different shape windows or a different number of windows, and the door could be different or whatever. When I put my paint on with the palette knife and covered up all my lines, then I really couldn't remember what it all looked like. So I just kind of made up my own. So right there, I'm highlighting the cross on the top side and the left side. That's all that gets highlighted. Okay, so see right there where I'm going over the roof with the brush? This is watered down white paint, and all it's doing is kind of brightening it up a little bit without covering up my texture. So the texture of the palette knife still shows through, but this helps to brighten up that side. And the same thing with the shaded side. Just water down a dark color and brush that over the top, and your texture will still show through. I know it's shiny right now while it's wet, so it's hard to tell what I'm doing, but just the part that I want to be in shadow, I'm just kind of darkening it a little bit. So I decided to go ahead and brush over all that white trim too. All right, now I'm starting on my path going up to the door. So it starts out small because it's farther away, and then as it gets closer, it gets wider. And this is just the base coat. And I'm using a flat hog bristle brush, but honestly, any kind of brush would work for this. You could use a fan brush or a synthetic brush or whatever. I like the effect I get with the hog bristle brush, but so now, so I went in with a dark color, and now I'm putting in some highlights. And some even lighter highlights. So this is just an old rocky path that leads up to the door. And now I'm going to start putting some more texture into the grass. And I'm still using that hog bristle brush, so I'm just kind of tapping in some texture. And this is just the dark that goes in underneath the highlights. So now I'm starting on the lighter shades. And keeping in mind where my light source is coming from. So again, it's coming from the left, so all of this back here will be fairly bright. And the cast shadow from the church will go kind of toward the bottom right corner. I'm putting in a little bit of dark here because it's, in my mind, would be in shadow. So now I'm using a white and yellow mixture, and I've watered it down, and I just want to kind of brighten up the sky up there where my light source is coming from. And this is just a flat synthetic brush. So now I'm watering down some dark color, like the blue and brown. And again, I want my cast shadow from the church to come toward the bottom right corner. And I don't want any really hard lines, so just kind of softening things up a little bit. Yeah, I'm coming back with a small brush again to clean up my edges and brighten them up. Guys, if y'all like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't already. And when you subscribe, make sure you hit that notification bell so that you'll get notified when I upload another video. So now I'm brightening up my grass again. Now that that color is dry, I'm putting in a lighter shade. So the brighter the highlights and the darker the shadows, the sunnier it looks outside. So if you want it to be really bright and sunny, then keep that in mind. Keep contrast in mind. You've got to have your really bright shades and your really dark shades. Now you can keep playing around with this yellow shade until you get the brightness that you want or the color that you want. I wanted it to be fairly bright yellow. Now I'm darkening the front of the building again. And again, just to make it look sunnier outside. And this is watered down. You want to water it down, or you will cover up your texture from the palette knife, and we don't want to do that. So we want to make sure it's just a glaze. And now right under the eaves, I want to give it a little more shadow. So I didn't water it down, I just got a little bit of paint on my brush. So that's it, guys, and I hope you all enjoyed this and maybe give it a try. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless you.